Now flocking with the unruly geese.
All right, Luke. Well, last week, the day that our episode came out, the second season of Mandalorian also ended, and I don't know. Are you caught up on it? I know that you were behind for a little bit this season.
Yeah, I was behind, but I am fully caught up and
Good.
ready to discuss because I was so happy with how this turned out. I'm so happy with what Dave Favreau or John Favreau and Dave Filoni have thrown together. I love this. I loved it.
Sorry, you caught me as I was taking a drink. Yeah,
Like I said earlier in the year, give me 15 seasons of this shit.
dude. Honestly, and like, there's been a lot of really cool stuff that's like set up by this. Something that I've heard recently is that the Mandalorian, like the title, could be so like think about the phrase the Jedi. You could be saying, "Oh, the Jedi Obi-Wan," or the Jedi, that group of 5 Jedi over there. Like
Yeah.
Mandalorian can be used in the same way, and so it could be cool if this ends up tying into the whole retaking Mandalore plot and stuff like that, and we get to see Boba pop back up, and we get to see more Mandalorians. Then the Mandalorian could be a show that started out as one about a single Mandalorian, and the title, holds true there as The Mandalorian. But then in 9, 8, 7 seasons down the road, it could be about an entire group of Mandalorian, and could be called The Mandalorian about this like group of people. And so it
Like,
seems to be
something
pushing
with
that way.
Bo-Katan.
Exactly,
Sorry.
yeah. It seems
Yeah.
nah, you're good, and it seems to be pushing that way. So I'm really here for it. I do think that Bo-Katan is gonna die next season. I think
Yeah.
they're gonna do a better version of the Daenerys storyline.
I wouldn't hate that, especially for a Disney property, a Star Wars property that already spurned D&D once to be like, here, we'll take your shit that you were working on for so many years and do it better in like 3. Yeah,
I mean, in D&D's defense, it's not like it's an original story idea to have like the Mad Queen who is like, or the Mad King or whatever, but I get what you're saying. I agree. It would be amazing. It also just seems like that's where it's set up because so Bo-Katan had the Darksaber. She got it in Rebels. She didn't win it in combat though the last time she got it. Sabine in Rebels just hands it to her. And so what I think they're setting up and what I've read a lot of people think they're setting up is that the reason that Gideon had the saber and Bo-Katan didn't is because he did beat her in combat. And so it's going to be a combination of two things. One, her shame, I guess, in that loss needs to be redeemed through a win of winning the saber rather than just taking it from Mando. And then two, I think that that we'll see something about how the last time she tried to retake Mandalore, her claim wasn't viewed as legitimate because it was just given to her, and for that reason it failed. And so it's going to take her, being so focused on I have to fight and kill somebody for this saber that I think will ultimately be her undoing.
and the more I think about it, the more it does have several Dany parallels. She's been banished from this homeland that was taken in war, and they can't be there anymore. And now she's looking for ships to try and get back and reclaim it.
Exactly.
I do want to touch on one thing you touched on a little earlier, which was that the show may turn into being, quote, the Mandalorian, like, quote, the Jedi. They were already setting up several Mandalorian versus Jedi pieces in this season, which I thought was really interesting. And now that you say that, I think that does weave together well. Like when Ayla Secura came They definitely played up that fact that like, oh, she's a Jedi. Are you sure you want to talk to them? And they've been doing that.
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, yeah. Whatever her name
Um,
is.
no, you're good. But no, yeah, I think you're right. I don't know if there's gonna be like an outright conflict, but I think Din, like the main character's realization that his version of the Mandalorian creed is like a cultish, twisted version of it in the Watch. I think we may see parallels drawn between like the Republic era Jedi and the Watch. Like we may see parallels there between Luke's and even like Ahsoka's journey away from the Jedi in the same way that Din will now journey away from the Watch, you know? So I think that less a like a physical confrontation like you're I don't even know if you're saying a physical, but there's definitely like ideologically
No, yeah,
warring
ideological kind of
battle. Yeah.
yeah, that will probably turn into physical altercation, just as these things tend to do. But I hope they go into more of the like politics behind it and that side of things, and then
Well,
it kind of plays into coming
yeah,
to
that's
heads.
that's actually true. I was gonna say I doubt we'll see any physical altercations, but I doubt we'll see any between Mando, like our Mando and the Jedi, but like Bo-Katan and like that girl, even like Boba. I don't think he'd have any beef with Luke at this point because it's like we both survived, so do your thing. But even Boba with the wrong Jedi, there is gonna be a certain amount of like they see themselves as the White Knights of the galaxy. Which
Right.
that was my one thing is I'm in love with what we got. The episode was great. I love the way that Luke showed up to save it. Looking at the face swap they did, it almost is like could y'all have just done a face double and just said this is Luke? Like, but
I
anyway,
thought that same thing. That was the one small thing I was disappointed in is that we had this Luke that looked like old Luke, but didn't really sound like Luke at all, which is just because Mark Hamill's older and stuff. So it was a little difficult for me to suspend disbelief at that Luke showing up. But
yeah, I mean, and people make good points that'll get patched in the next couple of weeks or months. Probably before season 3, there will be a better version of Luke, better looking version of Luke at the end of that episode. But that really wasn't even my big hang up. Like, that stuff's kind of hit or miss in general. But what really got me was the fact that like I love all the parallels it drew between Luke and Vader at the end of Rogue One and stuff like that with the kill box coming out of the elevator. But I and we don't know where the story's going, but I feel like this was just super reductive, and I wish it was a different Jedi. Either one that had been like vaguely mentioned as possibly still being alive, or maybe one we just don't know at all. Because right now the options, like I guess ultimately Grogu will probably come back to the series, but the options right now are that Grogu goes with Luke to start his new Jedi Temple in 5 or 6 years, and then gets murdered in the fire there that Kylo causes, or Grogu's off doing stuff with Luke that we won't get to see. And so it's like I wish it'd been a different Jedi that we could have incorporated into the series more. Like I love the fan service and love that it was Luke, and I'm not ever gonna like be like, nah, give me something else over that if it's like a different moment entirely. But I wish it would have been a different Jedi. I wish my big thing with Star Wars right now is like I want to, as much as I love these characters, I want the main thread of this story to step away from the Skywalker.
I do as well, as especially when they foreshadowed that not really foreshadowed, but they were like, oh, it's one X-wing. It's like, okay, this is obviously Luke here.
Yeah, which I did like that. Like that's the thing. Everything, the way they did it is the best way to do it. I just wish, part of me wishes they had done it with a different Jedi.
Because that whole walk when it was like not showing Luke's face, but the whole time you're like, yeah, this is Luke. Obviously, I was like, okay, but what if it isn't? What if we get a cool new Jedi here? Because we're kind of running out of Jedis here. They have to expand the Jedi universe here in order to like keep this story going with Jedis.
No, I agree. And
for that reason, I really did hope it was a new Jedi that was going to kind of be Luke-esque. But yeah,
well, the other problem is there's just not a ton of Jedis out there right now, and like I get why, and like it it's it's half a dozen here, six there. People would have had problems with it being a new Jedi in the same way that people have problems with it being Luke, where it's it's not a real problem, but it's like if we could have had the we would have been sitting here saying like, well, if it would have been Luke or someone we knew, we could have had real narrative heft to it rather than him just going with a stranger. And so,
But it
ultimately,
was
I think Luke is the best choice just because he's the only true Jedi left. Like, and this is why I ultimately think. I'm sorry, I keep steamrolling you, but this is why I ultimately think that the Jedi Mandalorian will like draw similarities between Republic Jedis as we know them, because I think we'll see a lot of lightsaber users and Force wielders, but who have so soured on the Jedi and the Republic and even the Empire because they're post-Imperial here that they don't call themselves Jedi or don't practice the same. Like Ahsoka, she isn't technically a Jedi anymore by her own admission. And so I think we'll get a lot more characters like that while seeing the like Jedi creed kind of called into question, or at least the way that we've seen it exist in live action up till now.
I do have a theory to run at you.
All right, Abby.
So in episode 8, right, Rey goes and meets Luke, and Luke doesn't want to help. And he said, the classic Star Wars line where at the time I just checked it off as rote Star Wars verbiage, but he was like, I don't want to train you. I've trained people before, and I've seen how the darkness can win or whatever. Maybe that's Grogu. Because Ayla, or Ahsoka, I don't know where I got Ayla from.
It's another
Ahsoka
Jedi.
didn't want to train Grogu. She said she saw too much of Anakin in him. So I wonder if this is going to be kind of that meld between The Mandalorian and the later trilogy of what if Grogu's the one that goes bad?
See, I think Grogu could go bad or could flirt with the dark side. My thing is that so Grogu may have been an idea in the sequel trilogy, but just looking at how it was handled as a whole, I don't want to give them I don't want to retroactively give them credit for preparing for something that wasn't in the cards,
Not at all, not at all. This is definitely something that they're like, oh, this could work now that we have this trilogy written. Now that 8's came out, this could play into it. A lot like
but even
how
still, I disagree because of Kylo. Like that's who Luke is directly talking about, and that's who that comes to be proven to be by the end of the series. And so I think there's some connection. I ultimately think that we'll get, whether it's a time jump or we just won't see him again for 3 actual years, I think we'll have some time between when we see Grogu again and then he'll come back in a teenage Groot style, maybe not like a antsy video game playing meme, but in that form, a more mature version of Grogu who's a more powerful Jedi who can then actually contribute to these adventures rather than just come in for a clutch save right at the end or something like that.
That being said, I would love to see little Grogu as a Sith with a Sith cape and a little red lightsaber, and having the idea of a Yoda Sith, talking all Yoda word jumbled, but the power of the dark side you do not know.
No, yeah, but overall I really liked it. Oh my god, we haven't even talked about the post-credit scene, which I didn't know about until 2 days after the fact.
I didn't know about it until right now as I reread the Wikipedia summary.
Yeah, so you should go.
Crazy.
You should go watch that on mute, and I will just break down what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. I mean, it sounds like you already probably know, but anyway. So we pick back up on Tatooine. Our boy, big worm neck guy from Return of the Jedi, is there. He's now taken Jabba's place and has also taken Jabba's fat. He looks pretty thick. We see a shadow come down the stairs, old-fashioned way, like Luke back in the day.
The years were not good to Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, they were not. I prefer big, tentacly neck guy. But anyway, Boba comes down the stairs, shoots him in the chest, and throws him off the throne. Then he sits on it. And him and homegirl Finnick looks like the king and queen of Tatooine. I don't know exactly what that throne signifies, but Seems
I dig
important.
that. I hope he goes full on mob boss, and we get to see it.
That's my assumption is that's what we're gonna get. I I wish that they hadn't burned Maul. Or I guess Maul's already dead at this point in the timeline anyway, so never mind. I'm really curious to see. We'll see. Obviously, the story pick up from there to show. I think like here's how Boba's life ends, basically. But the series that's being spawned out of this is called the Book of Boba. I think whether it's like a chronological retelling of the events or just like strategically placed flashbacks, I think we're gonna see some pretty cool stuff, like maybe his formative years as a bounty hunter after Django died, how exactly he got off Geonosis and got out of there with his father's armor, got out of there alive and all that. Um, with it being the Book of Boba, I think this will function, like a gospel about Boba Fett to a certain extent, where once he's returned to Tatooine, he's almost viewed as this savior to the lower class people who have just because he's also been running around Tatooine for the last 5 or 6 years as living as a sand person and helping fight against the empire that way, or what's left of the empire that way. So I feel like there will be a certain amount of like cult hero, like continuing the Western hero kick that they're on with the Mandalorian, and kind of show him as like um, a savior of sort to Tatooine and like the lower class on Tatooine, which would be kind of cool.
Especially since he doesn't have any connections to Tatooine to begin with. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Django wasn't from there. Boba was born in as a clone, so I
Mm-hmm.
really like that he's kind of adopted that as his home. The other person I want to talk about is Ming Na Wen. I love her in these big movie franchise spin-off television shows. She was so great
Oh yeah,
in
because she was in
Agents of Shield. Yeah, she was in the Guardians of the Galaxy TV show for like 4 episodes, and now she's
what Guardians TV?
in
Like the animated one?
yeah. Hmm.
Okay.
And then now she's in The Mandalorian, obviously. She's going to be in The Bad Batch as Finnick. And now there's
Oh,
this
that's
book of
dope. I didn't
Boba
know that.
Fett.
That's so dope.
Yeah, I love that she does this and loves it and is so good at it as well.
Yeah, this will be the last point I make on Star Wars, but I read it the other day, and I agree with you, one, but I read this the other day, and it's basically Disney has finally wised up and decided to turn Star Wars into Marvel in that we're not going to get three big tentpole movies that are going to please everyone anymore, every 3 years or however they're releasing that. We're going to get looks like maybe a movie release, two movie releases a year, and then even those aren't going to be quote unquote for everybody. But more specifically, then there's the Ahsoka series. We talked about this before, but there's just so many series that fill so many different niches, and it's like, well, I'm not that much into seeing what's going on with the Rangers of the Republic, but I fucking love Obi-Wan Kenobi, so I'm all in on that one. Like, it doesn't matter if you
Which
watch shit you don't like, as long as you're watching the shit you do.
Which, as a viewer, I love that so much more because it is so much less effort for me to watch a 38-minute pilot and be like, don't love this, and then come back if people say it's good, than sit and watch a 2.5 hour movie where Ray turns out to be a Palpatine, and then
Yeah, well, they obviously hadn't planned it outside of the 6 months prior to this movie being filmed.
yeah, I think this way gives the Star Wars franchise a way to air as they grow, find out what works, find out what doesn't, and keep making what works and stop making what doesn't. So I'm really excited about this, as we talked about a couple weeks ago. But I think Star Wars is headed in a really good direction.
Oh, absolutely. But now, speaking of directions, let's change them and talk about basketball because the NBA season started up again last night, even though it like just ended like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, that was crazy to me. It doesn't seem like they should be back, but also it doesn't seem like Christmas Day should happen without an NBA game being played.
Well, it feels also like I've stumbled into a false reality where the NBA just suddenly started. Like, there's no, like, and it's just a side effect of this year. But in previous years, there's a lot of lead up, a lot of build up to the NBA season. Whereas this one, I feel like since the season itself, or the finals and like the last season is so recent that it just kind of feels like more, not more of the same, but just like, oh, more basketball. That's good. Let's go. Like if they do end up shifting season dates around, I do want to get into the games, but real quick, I just thought of this. If they do end up shifting like season start dates around, I wouldn't mind there being a pretty decent like break in the fall. Like they're playing over the summer, they break for the fall, and then come back around this time right before Christmas to kick off the second half of the season with Christmas Day games. But anyway,
I kind of wish they'd just done Big Bang Christmas Day games instead of having like what 2 games on Tuesday. Pretty much every team playing yesterday.
yeah,
And
I
then
wish
a
that
couple Christmas Day games. Like you
wish they
can
would have
still
let the
have your Big Five
preseason be
national
the
ones.
preseason rather
Yeah.
than like schedule a 3 or 4 game preseason for everybody's like gotta play yourself into shape. It's like, well, they've also been playing for like 2 weeks, so
You know who didn't play yesterday though?
James Harden.
James Harden and the Rockets.
What a guy. I was really upset when those videos came out either last week or the week before.
What videos,
Of-
right?
The ones of him maskless throwing out money in clubs when the rest of his teammates were already at training camp in Houston.
Did you see his Instagram story like explaining it?
Yeah, he's like, nah, my girl's a boss. She's making her own club. I've seen the Rockets subreddit went in and like the NBA byline or like guidelines about this. It's like, yeah, and you can't do this. You can't do this in any market. You can't go out and like be social. You can't do this unless your girl is proven that she's a boss and opening a new club. Like they Photoshop that and they're like, look, we didn't read the rules. This is obviously okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they got mad at Lou Williams for breaking the bubble just to get chicken wings, I can't imagine why.
My thing is like nobody's like questioning you for being at the strip club. One, everybody knows that's your life, but two, nobody's judging. Like you do you, man. But we are in the middle of a pandemic, and you're a public figure who also has to like who wants to be the driving face of a league. Like you can't be like, nah, you don't get it. My girl was a boss, so I had to be there. And it's like, no, man, you really didn't. Like it's a pandemic. So all that say, I'm really not like Schadenfreude kind of way, but I'm really glad that the NBA is making an example here and being and just letting players know that like, hey, we set these rules and we're gonna follow them. Just because you're James Harden or I mean, it remains to be seen if LeBron did something like this, what they would do. But just because you're James Harden or Russell Westbrook or whatever other name you want to throw out there, you're not going to be exempt from following these policies, especially not because your girl is a boss, whatever the fuck that means.
I do want to also say that this Rockets team is like one of the most all-time we don't give a fuck about anything teams. You got Boogie, who
Dude, I love this Rockets team.
Oh, I do too. They have an attitude, and that's kind of what I'm driving at. You have Harden, you have Boogie, you have John Wall. All three of them have kind of been through some, not the same shit, but like different shit with the same impacts. So I like the attitude this team has, and I can't wait to root for them to lose every single game this season so the Thunder get a better draft pick.
Do we have their draft pick?
I think we have a swap.
Oh shit, you're right, from the Chris Paul, yeah.
Let me see.
No, you're good. But I had a point to make. Oh, I came up with this trade last night. So, I mean, we don't have to get too much into Harden trade rumors. I want to do that more at the beginning of the year. Once we get into the season a little bit to see if he's actually staying, trading, doing all that. But anyway, I really, really, really like a straight up swap with maybe a younger player attached for Paul George and James Harden. Because Paul George just signed an extension. You're muted. Paul George just signed that extension, so he's locked in now for at least another 4 years. I think it's 5 after this season, wherever he goes. Like, he does have a tendency to ask out of deals, but, I mean, if the team that you're playing for says no, there's nothing you can do about it. And to me, it's obvious that he isn't the guy for a number of reasons.
Harden or Paul George? Because I think
Paul
that
George.
statement can be said for both of them.
I think Harden could be, but my thing was like to
I
me
don't
with
think
Harden,
it'll
he like
happen.
needs to be the facilitator for a better player. Like
Hmm.
he's already a fantastic, but he needs like a Kawhi, a LeBron, a Giannis, someone who is that next step player for him to facilitate and unlock both of them.
It
Because then
would.
he could shoot and like let them
Mhm.
drive. It would be dirty.
I also don't think he's going to succeed at the Rockets because of how
Hmm.
much they've babied him and made him their franchise player. All the things that
I agree.
Russ hated. I think he's going to have to go to a new team, and that new team is going to lay down the law of this is how we do things. You're a member of this team. This isn't James Harden's fill in the
Hmm.
blank team name. I think that's what he'll also need to succeed.
Well, there's also I think there's a certain amount of like I think the Houston franchise and organization at this point is going to have to lose Harden to win something. I think there's a mental block as long as Harden's on that team because it's obvious that it's obvious. You watch him in any important game in the playoffs as a Rocket and he shits the bed. You watch him in those same situations with the only other team he's played on, which was like 10 years ago, so it's not even that great of an example. But with the Thunder, when he was a young player, and again, he wasn't the absolute main guy, you didn't see the pressure get to him as much. You didn't see him wilt in the finals against LeBron,
Yeah.
Whereas a few years later, he got blocked by Manu fucking Ginobili. So,
But yeah, the picks that Oklahoma City does have from Houston is there are actually two pick swaps this next draft. It's our own pick with 5 through 30 swap right, and then Miami's 2021 first rounder with 5 through 30 swap right
God, dude,
with
that
Houston.
Miami pick has. Because I don't want to be disrespectful to Miami. We'll talk about them here in a second when we go through Christmas Day games. But I just, unless they're able to get, I love Duncan Robinson, I love Tyler Hero, I love the younger players they have, I love Bam, but unless they can get somebody to help carry the torch from Jimmy and fill in for him as
Like
he starts to age, like I think they still have 3-4 years of really competing, but you're gonna see their win total drop every year until they fall back out of the playoffs or are only contending for a 7-8 seed rather than a championship. As much as I love Jimmy, at some point he's not LeBron and time will catch up to him.
which seems to be the case for every single Eastern Conference team that's been good over the past 5 or 6 years that LeBron James wasn't a member of.
Yeah, they get like a 3-4 year window, which is the dynasty of LeBron and the dynasty of the Warriors did kind of shift our view of things, but that's how basketball's supposed to work. LeBron, Jordan, and the Warriors are the outliers. You're really only supposed to have a 3 or 4 year window where you're competing. And so, we're talking about that like it's the end of the world, but if they do want to, the Heat are a team that can and probably want to continue their power streak after Jimmy has started to fade a little bit. And so, I don't know who that could be. Harden could go there, but then they'd have to lose probably both
Harden
Duncan and Hero.
Harden would not do well in Miami. His practice facility would literally be a strip club.
Yeah, no, that'd
He
be
would
rough.
build his own strip club on South Beach and then like put up a little Nerf hoop and call that practice.
Just sit there in the pool flinging it up. Yep, that's a good point. See, so like, I just
Yeah. But the Heat play the Pelicans on tomorrow, Christmas.
God, that is tomorrow.
It's the first day. It's the first game of the day.
Oh,
It's at 10 a.m. here. It's at 9 a.m. in Pacific time.
Pelicans Heat. I think that'll be pretty good. Brent, like, the Pelicans have all the pieces that I think the Heat do, just less polished and maybe less utilized. But I think that'll be a good matchup if the Pelicans can play up to the Heat. I don't want to add any disrespect to the Heat because I fucking love them. But if Zion, Lonzo,
Brandon
Adams,
Ingram went off
and
yesterday.
Brandon Ingram, yeah, if they all show up to play, like, that's a good game. The Heat may still win, especially since Eric Spoelstra is 7-0 on Christmas Day, but
That's a fun stat.
that is a fun stat. But then after that, we got Warriors Bucks, which, in the past, this was like 2 years ago, or in a perfect world this year, this would be the championship matchup. But I think this will be really fun because we'll get to see Steph and Giannis really go at it in two very different ways that I think will be just as successful against each other.
And both really have something to prove, not just like in a macro sense, but also both didn't play well in their first game. Like Giannis missed the game-winning free throw, which I know that's a high bar for not playing well, but both had, and then Steph just didn't play too well at all. They got ran off the court. But both have things that they definitely want to make right from their first game.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think they're probably the two outside of like Luca or someone running away with it. I think they're probably the two best dark horse candidates, if you can even call Giannis a dark horse candidate. But this is it's a really cool MVP matchup because I think Steph, with the right motivation, he can have another 2015-2016 MVP season.
Yeah,
which would be dope as hell.
I think it will be hard without Clay though. Which is ultimately, I think we saw last season how much the Warriors need Clay, and I think we're about to find it out again.
Well, with Oubre and Wiseman, I want to agree with you, but I think they have some younger players who could maybe not fill the exact role, but slot into the similar positions. And if they'd listen to me and make that fucking trade for Vucevic, Fournier, and Aaron Gordon, they'd be hands down the best team right now. But whatever.
A slight break in our Christmas Day programming to just talk about how baller it was for Buddy Hield to tip that in and just get the fuck off the court last night.
Yes, it was good shit. The fact that it was Buddy was already enough, but that he was smooth about it.
Well done. 10 out of 10, Buddy. Still hope you get traded to a better team where you can be a better player.
Philadelphia, baby.
Philadelphia. Which then next, speaking of East Coast games, we have next Nets Celtics. Interesting. ESPN is giving this a only 53.8% chance for Brooklyn to win.
Yeah, I was gonna say this seems like a toss up. It's almost like a young version of the Net, or it's like the Nets are playing a young version of themselves in a lot of ways almost.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see how that plays out. I really want to see how Tatum will stack up against Kevin Durant. He's quicker. Tatum, he's quicker than a lot of guys his size, and so that's helped him even against people like LeBron. But KD and playing at the level that he seems to be playing at post Achilles, KD is a whole different animal, though, and so if Tatum even has like a little bit of success guarding him, then I'm going to be a lot higher on his defense than I already am. I'm pretty high on his defense as is, but if we can see him stand his ground against KD, that'll tell me that he's pretty firmly like the next big all-star in my book.
And I would just love for KD to be shut down. I think he got a lot of pats on the backs for playing admittedly well against the Warriors. But yeah, let's see what happens with a high quality opponent.
Fair enough. Let's roll right on by then into our next game, penultimate game of the evening. Tomorrow is still Christmas Day for us. We're recording this on Christmas Eve. Should specify that. So,
which it doesn't feel like you should be able to call this Christmas Eve before like it's dark.
But yeah, I'm looking out the window and it's like blue skies. Like it's Christmas Eve. And it's like, dog, it's 11:30.
No. Yeah. It's just weird to hear Christmas Eve while there's still sun outside.
Yeah, you're right. But I think so. In my heart, as both a Dallas boy and a Lucas stan, I want the Mavs to win. But the Lakers team is just way too fucking good this season. I think Luka has to have a monster game, and even then, he's got two other monsters standing in front of him. So,
yeah, this is going to be tough. Eastern Conference, or no, not Eastern.
I think it'll be fun.
Finals.
Yeah, it's a West Conference matchup. It's probably a Western Conference Finals preview, if that's what you're going to say. Like that, I agree with that. I think it'll be a good game, but
I saw a tweet yesterday that was like, "What if Luka just decided to get hot?" Like physically attractive.
I mean, he's got to lose the baby fat, and then he'll be cut and probably yamming. Like that's it. That's all the dude's got to do.
And at that point, how do you not vote for him MVP just by like looking at him?
fair enough. I mean, it's all based on narratives, and the narrative's like, well, he started off our little goofy Euro white boy, but damn, he's fine now. So
Kristaps tried to do it with like the hair move that he changed, but
Kristaps just couldn't put any muscle on his frame, and that hurt him both literally and metaphorically. So
yes.
fun fact before we move on to our last matchups, though, the Mavs. So every team outside of the Nets, Heat, and Mavs played in a Christmas game last year. But the Mavs last played on Christmas nearly 10 years ago in 2011 versus the Heat, which is just kind of a cool little stat. That would have been a finals rematch of like the Dirk versus the D-Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron James.
Well, speaking of finals rematches, we have second round of the playoff rematches.
Yeah, boy!
That I am so excited for. I hope the Nuggets just take it to the Clippers here, especially after that sad loss that Buddy Hield handed them with a bow last night.
I just want to see the Clippers go on like a parade of losing this season.
You and me both, especially after they come out hot beating the Lakers the first day. But when the Nuggets won the second round against the Clippers, I have never seen a city happier. People were driving around downtown Denver like they had just won the playoffs, like the whole championship.
I mean, they did beat the Finals MVP in the playoffs, so there is something to be said for that. Yeah, like
Paul no,
George
don't get me wrong.
I
don't want to discount it. Like that was a good series win, but yeah,
I mean, it's worth
if that's how they reacted
bit,
to winning the second round playoff game, I only
Christmas
want to
Day
see
games?
what happens when they win a finals.
Dude, imagine, I think it'll be like Whoville around Denver tomorrow if they win on Christmas. People will just be singing, holding hands. They'll be police be like, hey man, pandemic. They're like, fuck you, dude, Nuggets. And then he's like, well, shit. And he joins the circle.
Someone hands him a Pepsi.
Okay, so let's do a quick rundown. So we both, Pelicans Heat. Who do you got?
I got the Heat here. Eric Spoelstra, 7-0 on Christmas Day games. That's my stat, and I will ride with it.
I think that's a red herring. I'm going to say Pelicans. It hurts my soul, but I feel like this is a Pelicans. I feel like this could be like the Pelicans the new look Pelicans coming out party to a certain extent.
This is are we sure they're good Pelicans game, or are they good at all Pelicans game?
It is the third game of Zion's second season, so let's just remember that. Like it is a are they good game, but it's also like they could get better game if they lose. So
it's one that could be a statement game for them if they win, and if they lose, everyone's like, eh.
Yeah, if they win, then it's like, oh, but if they lose, then it's like, well, this is kind of what was expected. But Warriors Bucks, I'm gonna say Warriors. I think Steph will get hot and be pissed off after the Nets loss.
See, I'm gonna say Bucks for the opposite reason, that I think Giannis is gonna be pissed after missing a free throw, and after all this, the talk in the media has been, oh, you pay him and he shits a brick like this.
I see what you're saying. My big thing with Giannis now is I don't think he has the Wiggins, the Cat, the Embiid even does he have it? But there just in personality, there's this aspect of Giannis that is soft and that has proven to not fully wilt but kind of shrivel away in the light. And so I think that what happened last game will affect him for at least tomorrow, if not for a couple of games, and he will kind of take some. He's going to seem like he's regressing, I think, over the next couple of games, and then he'll show back up in a week or so as his usual self.
That being said, though, this is I could see that happening. This is the biggest line in all the games. Milwaukee's the 10-point favorite here.
Oh wow. I still think so. I mean, you can be a 10-point favorite, and all it takes is Steph coming up the floor 3 times.
Oh, no doubt.
Flinging it up from the logo. I know you know that. I'm just saying, lines don't mean shit in basketball anymore.
You remember sitting in that car on the way back from the date party watching Steph hit that shot from the Thunder
I don't want to talk about it, man.
So let's talk about Nets Celtics. My heart wants the Celtics to win. I do think the Nets are going to take this, though. I think
Yeah,
the
I think
Nets
the
have a lot
Nets.
of momentum. I think Steve Nash and just brings a young energy to that team, especially to Kyrie and Kevin, who both need to feel like they're part of the process. I think Steve Nash gives that to them. They can all sit like, oh, you were in the league 10 years ago. We're in
Mhm.
the league now. We're all older, more mature, thoughtful people. Let's think our way to win this.
Well, it's
I don't
something
think we
that
stop the
like
Nets yet.
I I agree. I think it's Nets 100%. And I agree with what you're saying. I think a big part of like the Steve Nash thing is my understanding is that he's also hired a lot of players on his staff or like former players on his staff. And so it's like KG's players only clubhouse stream or whatever that TNT show was that he had like not Giannis, KD and Kyrie both are strike me as very proud, like alt proud, but very proud dudes who take a lot of or put a lot of stock in. Did you play? You know, even if it's like a Mike D'Antoni or someone who's had this incredible coaching mind, I don't think they'll give the same respect or defer in the same way that they would to a Steve Nash, a Jason Kidd, someone who's been in the league and holds some sway. You know, even a Doc Rivers. I thought that'd
Even
be a really good hire
Stoudemire,
for.
who's their
Mhm.
player development coach.
Exactly, yeah, and he played with Nash too, so I think that's a big part of the thing for them. And as much as I dislike, like we've talked about, catering 100% to all stars like that in your culture, I think it's ultimately hurtful, as you see like with the Clippers and with Houston, with PJ Tucker and with like Lou Williams and all them. But here, it's been done the right way, and it seems like it's a good atmosphere for those dudes to flourish. And like KD has seemingly come back and dropped only 10%, so
Yeah,
that's kind of scary. That's all the
I
way.
hate that too, but good for him.
Yeah. I mean,
Mavs
Mavs,
Lakers.
Lakers. There's not really much else
Yeah,
to say. They have almost every matchup except for I think the Luca and LeBron matchup is even, which is still not
which
even in their favor. So
yeah, and I think LeBron's gonna light a fire under that team's ass after they. I don't think they led the entire game against the Clippers, so the Lakers haven't had a lead this season yet. I think that's about to change in a big way.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if LeBron will even light a fire under the ass or just be the fire himself. I could just see this being one of his games where he comes out and he's like, "Look, I'm going to be taking a lot of minutes off this season, but here's the deal," and lays it out there for everybody to see.
I I don't hate LeBron. I like to root against him. Dennis Schroeder starting for the Lakers makes that difficult. So I might just become a bandwagon Lakers fan this year. I'm not,
Dude,
but I'm
I really
weighing
like
the
the team they
idea.
put together. I think I have some issues with LeBron as well. Honestly, also, I just try and find one hateable team every year that I put all my energy towards, one or two. That this year that team is the Clippers. So,
Ah, mine's the
and then I feel a
Rockets.
lot yeah, see, so you do that and then you can feel a lot better about the other 29, 28 teams. You're like, "Okay, so they got some good shit going on."
But the Clippers, they also play.
Oh yeah, I
I
guess whatever.
I have the Nuggets with the upset here. I think the Joker, is going to show up, show out. I
Mm,
think I think the Clippers are going to be like, we just beat the Lakers. The Nuggets, easy. The only thing I think could swing this in the Clippers' favor is the match aspect.
well, yes, but how many players are still on this Clippers team that actually lost to the Nuggets?
Kawhi, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean Paul George, but he's the reason they lost, so I don't think he gets to be that upset.
He's the reason any team he's on loses in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I mean, I want to say Nuggets too. I think Jamal Murray is going to take another step forward. I think that's going to get scary. I really like that dude, and I think he's going to keep getting better. And the Clippers, whether it's a grudge match or not, they have shown that they take even mild success for granted. So I agree with you 100%. I think after a Lakers win to start the season, they're going to be sitting there feeling like they won the championship and not even feel like getting up for this game, and the
Mm-hmm.
Nuggets are going to shock them again.
Yeah, but So we do have a full slate of basketball here to watch, which doesn't leave a ton of room open for Christmas Day movies. I really the only Christmas movie I've watched this year is Elf. I've had Home Alone on my list to watch. Feels like that's going to be a day after Christmas thing. Have you watched any Christmas movies this year?
The only Christmas movie I've watched is the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special.
Disney
It was
Plus?
bad. Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad. I love
I mean,
the
it wasn't.
Lego
It wasn't
like,
bad. It
movie
just wasn't good.
franchises, but yeah, that's too
It
bad.
wasn't. So it wasn't that. It was Disney or not Disney. Star Wars has been doing this for a while. They will put out yearly a certain amount of like animated Lego Star Wars, like direct to DVD style movies, and so it was
Oh,
just another
gotcha.
one of those that was done a little bit nicer and then dropped on Disney Plus instead. So,
Nice.
but I think I caught a little bit of Elf. I don't know, man. I haven't been in a huge Christmas movie mood this year.
I haven't either, which is probably just the 2020 season. But
The
one thing,
everything.
yeah. But one thing that has been making me a little bit upset is how far we are stretching this. Oh, this movie has a Christmas scene in it, thus it is a Christmas movie thing. I think this started with the Die Hard argument of is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And I'll say
Yes.
yes. That movie totally happens on Christmas. It centers around Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. But don't call Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone a Christmas movie because there's a
What?
3-minute scene
I
of
think you made
them.
that up.
No,
I
The
don't think
Ringer
anybody
put
says
it out.
that.
The Ringer did it.
Well, here's the deal that I've come to realize about The Ringer. They claim to be this really like progressive, like, oh, we're not like the other ones, but they're exactly like every other. They go for the same style, like clickbaity. Fucking, I don't want to turn this to a soapbox about The Ringer, but it's something that I had to fucking realize, and I'm gonna rant about for a second before we get back to Christmas movies. It's just like I lost my train of thought entirely. Oh, but they fuel outrage fuels their clicks as well, and drama and anything that they can turn into a narrative will be. And so I'm sure that they were like, oh, it has a Christmas scene in it. We can put it on this list, and then people will talk about it, thus making it relevant. And it's like, no, you made a stupid fucking list, and now people are calling you out. That doesn't make you relevant. That makes you fucking stupid. When I worked for that website, we can leave all this in. When I worked for that website, that was my big thing. Is like I didn't ever want to do content like that, and for the most part, didn't have to. Like if I put it down, it was usually like, well, nobody calls this a Christmas movie, so I'm not going to call it a Christmas movie, but it has a Christmas scene, rather than like here's a Christmas. Anyway, get back to what you're talking
Yeah,
about. I'm sorry.
that needs to end. Calling movies Christmas movies because they have a Christmas scene in it needs to stop. That being said, I googled Christmas movies this morning, and Google gave me like a bunch of movies, including Fat Man, which I'm excited to watch.
Oh,
It's like
I keep
a
forgetting about
$5
that.
rent on YouTube. I haven't seen where else it is, but there has
Yo ho,
been
brother.
a absurd amount of Christmas movies come out over the past 5-10 years, and I don't think any of them have landed.
Which ones? Christmas Night? A Knight's Tale at Christmas? No, that's not it. That sounds cool.
That does sound cool. That sounds really cool. Soundtrack on that, like, there was one that came out with.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra?
There's one that came out with Anna Kendrick and Bill Hader named Noel last Christmas.
Yo, hold
Um,
up, wait. Don't talk shit on that one. That one actually is like hardcore Christmas.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. I'm just saying none. As I was scrolling through these popular Christmas movies that Google was like you should watch, and it was all movies that have came out in the past 3 years. Just none of them have reached that bar that like
Oh,
Elf set. Like when
there's
was
no
the last
Christmas
time we
classics.
had
Yeah,
a good Christmas classic? There
I
hasn't been
mean,
one for a while.
I disagree. I disagree. First of all, Uncut Gems. No, I'm kidding. First of all, the
Do,
night
do
before.
I need to stand back on my soapbox?
No, the night before, dude. That's a fucking great Christmas movie. I don't think that
I'm
one's
not-
on Netflix. I mean, I get what you're saying. I would argue that because like basically what you're saying is we get an overwhelming glut of Christmas movies every year, which like whoop-de-fucking-do. We've been getting that. Like, before Netflix, you would just walk into Walgreens or CVS or Walmart and just see stacks and shelves full of random-ass Christmas movies that maybe 4 or 5 people had ever seen. Not literally, but... And so, like, it's not a new problem. If the problem is that we haven't got any Christmas classics recently, without any research done, I think The Night Before is probably the last one I can think of. Office Christmas Party really wanted to be, but it just comes off super bad.
Yeah. And not even, like, The Night Before, I haven't seen it.
What?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Seth Rogen, Anthony Mackie. It actually looks pretty good.
Watch it tonight, just not with your conservative family, because they do a lot of drugs. Like, a lot of drugs.
Anywho.
A lot of drugs.
But even in the sense of, like, there hasn't been, like, a GPG, The Grinch, Elf, Santa Claus with Tim Allen. There hasn't been just a normal, like, lowest common denominator Christmas classic lately.
I mean, you're right. That's just kind of the nature of one. There might have been one coming out in 2020 that we lost because of COVID. But that's all just kind of the nature of movie making nowadays. It's remakes and remakes and sequels is the other word I'm looking for the most part, even in, like, Christmas movies. We got the fucking Christmas Chronicles Part 2 this year, which was an Avengers-style, like, Christmas action movie. Instead of, like,
Tim Allen one?
No, it was the Kurt Russell
Or the
Yeah, the Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't seen either of these, but the first one is a lot more like a homely, like, oh, home is where the heart is Christmas movie. Whereas the second one's just outright like, yeah, we're the Christmas Avengers now. And it's just like, it's shit like that, or it's like we get a Grinch remake that's an animated movie. Like There's just a lot less Christmas magic involved in Christmas movie making right now, unless it is those random Hallmark or, like, BS ones that come off more cheesy and are made for, the Lifetime audience.
Yes.
To put it nicely. I was like, how can I say this and not...
My white mother.
Exactly. Our white mothers, because I'm sure there's a lot of overlap in the shit that they watched.
Maybe, but my mom just wants us all to watch White Christmas every year.
I'm trying to think if we have a Christmas movie. Christmas Story is our traditional Christmas movie.
See, at least that one's fun to watch. It's
a good
not
time.
From the 50s, but anywho.
I mean, White Christmas is good. It's just, like, old, I guess, is the problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't really, like, the message rings true, but the overall experience is like, well, none of this looks even kind of relevant, so I don't feel
especially as they've gone back and redubbed it, and there's, like, weird blue spots all over people's faces because
do they really do that?
Yeah. But anywho, I gotta fly south.
All right, well, wings up, boys.